Hey guys, Toxic here, and I'm bringing you guys something like a little special video. Normally I think you guys were expecting a zombie gameplay, but instead today I have a special videos just because today I think is Saturday. Actually, it's 5 minutes away from Sunday, but today the NHL regular season ended, and I was just going to do a little special video saying how I think every team did in the regular season, like top to bottom on both conferences, sorry. How I think all the trophies will go out, and also how I think each team will do in the first round of the playoffs. So I will see you guys in a second. Okay guys, first up, the Columbus Blue Jackets. On one hand, you can say they had the worst season ever, and on the other hand, you can say they had a good season, because they realized they're not a team that's ready to squeak into the playoffs in an 8th seed or 7th seed in the Western Conference. They need a complete rebuild in this year, and they need a complete rebuild for the next few years, which is good because they got rid of some players like Jeff Carter, Antoine Vermette, Sammy Paulson, players they didn't need and and not that they didn't need those players, sorry, just that they weren't working out for Columbus. And they got players like Jack Johnson, they got some first round picks, I believe, or maybe not first round picks, but I know they got some picks for those players. And I feel that was the perfect move by the Columbus GM. And another great move by them, in my opinion, was not getting rid of Rick Nash. Because, in my opinion, if they were able to rebuild this team in at least 2 years, I think Rick Nash could be the star player, and he can be what he was meant to be, a captain leading an all-star team that goes to the conference finals, per se. So, onto the record, they are 29, 46, and 7 with 65 points, which I've seen worse, like Edmonton a few years back, like the year before they got Taylor Hall, year before they got Nugent Hopkins. They had worse seasons. So it's not the worst worst season we've seen in the last little while. But they do need some improvement in some areas. The one area I feel they did the best in was goals for. They had 202 goals for, which wasn't bad at all, considering how bad the team is. You know, they picked up some goals after the trade Jeff Carter, just because Jack Johnson and Rick Nash clicked a lot after that. And then you got their goals against, which, yeah, you could say it's kind of high, being at 262, but you can't blame Steve Mason, in my opinion. I think Steve Mason did the best he could with the team he had, right? Because when you're playing on Columbus, you're 23 years old. Yes, you won the Calder Cup, but because of Columbus's defense, because of how bad the team is, he just had no chance, in my opinion. So don't blame Steve Mason. I'd keep Steve Mason around for the next little while, just because he's still young. He can improve if the defense in Columbus improves. So don't trade him right away. I'd trade him maybe in 3 years if the team isn't fully rebuilt, or he's just not working out with a new defense, or whatever the reason is. So those are two players I'd like to keep around, is Steve Mason and Rick Nash. So overall, yes, Columbus had a bad year, but they're going to get a star player this year in the draft. It's guaranteed. Whether it's a Nail Yakupov or Ryan Murray, a defenseman they could use, or forward, they'll be an all-star in the NHL, so it's a good thing for Columbus. They'll get an all-star in the end. So on to the next team. So on to the Edmonton Oilers. They finished 14th in the Western Conference this year with 32 wins, 40 losses, 10 overtime losses, and 74 points. And in my opinion, Edmonton, they did the best they could, you know. They're improving every year. They're almost at 80-point mark, considering for a team that got the first overall pick in the past 2 years, which means they had horrible point totals in the past 2 years. They're getting better, and they're really improving. Players like Taylor Hall and Ryan Nugent Hopkins, who's only had 1 year of NHL experience, is an all-star pretty much already. So if you look at the team, they're doing amazing compared to where they were the last 2 years, and they still get a pretty high draft pick. I'm not sure if it's second overall, but I know it's still a pretty high draft pick. So then you have their goals for. They had 212 goals for, which is more than actually a few teams. That surprised me when I look at it. They have more goals scored than St. Louis and LA, two teams that are in the NHL playoffs, and they have more goals scored than any other team that didn't make the playoffs in the Western Conference. So their goal scoring is there. Their forwards are there. All their forwards will be all stars. You know, I'm gonna say Taylor Hall, Ryan Nugent Hopkins. They're gonna be future stars of the NHL, and they will be like people on the All-Star games. They'll have their own All-Star teams. Anyways, that's a great thing. Their goals against, it wasn't horrendous. There are worse teams like Columbus and a few other teams that they finished with 239 goals against. It's like I said, it's not horrendous, but it could be better. But yet you also consider the fact that they have Nikolai Habibulin and Devin Dubnyk in net. And not to take anything away from those guys, they are good goaltenders, but they're not all-star goaltenders. They're not like a Mikko Kaprizov for Calgary or any other team. They're not all-stars. They're just goaltenders. They're not bad or horrible, but they're not all-stars. So they're trying their best. So, Hivinen tried his best. I like to call him Hivinen, Habibulin. He tried his best. Dubnyk, he's actually from my hometown. He tried his best. And they also finished with differential of minus 27, which again isn't horrendous considering Columbus finished with negative 60. So hopefully they will get better in the future. I want to see Edmonton grow and become an all-star city and an all-star team and everything. They will be the best team in the NHL for the next 5 years to come. So look forward to that. Guys, Toxic here again with the final team of this video. It is the Anaheim Ducks. They finished their season with 34 wins, 36 losses, 12 overtime losses, and 80 points. And in my opinion, Anaheim had a disappointment of a season. They disappointed their fans, they disappointed the franchise. Because I thought this was a team that was going to come out and finish like 6th or 5th in the Western Conference. But instead they're the Western Conference's version of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay was also another team that I figured was going to finish in the top 4 actually, but they didn't. That's another video like I said though. But no, so Anaheim was a bit of a disappointment. They finished with 204 goals for, which is less than the Edmonton Oilers and only 2 more than the Columbus Blue Jackets, which surprised me as I figured Anaheim was going to come out with tons of goals, considering Corey Perry hit 50 goals last year, which is a big milestone in his career. And they also had players like Ryan Getzlaf and Bobby Ryan. And I figured all these players, they had enough goal scoring to hit, like, I'm going to say about 240 goals. But they didn't. And then you have the goals against, which is 231. And that's, how do I put it? It's not really a disappointment considering Jonas Hiller was out 1 or 2 times in the season for a little while. And they had Dan Ellis in net. And no offense to Dan Ellis, just like Nikolai Habibulin and Devin Dubnyk, he's not an all-star, which is the only problem. So no offense to him, but yeah. So that'd be one reason why their goals against is 231. It's just 8 less than Edmonton, but I figured when Jonas Hiller was in net, he tried his best. I figured the only reason that their goals against average is so high is because their defense. It's just so young when you got players like Cam Fowler and Lucas Biza. They're like so young, and if they get a few more years of experience in the NHL with them, I figured their goals against average will go down. And then they also finished with negative 27 differential, which surprised me, to be honest, because that's the same thing Edmonton had, which I was expecting, again, Anaheim to have like a plus 10 or whatever in differential, because I figured they were going to be a top team this year, but like I said, they weren't. So anyways, guys, this wraps up this video. So those were the first 3 teams in the Western Conference. The next 3 will be the Minnesota Wild, Colorado Avalanche, sorry guys about that, and the Dallas Stars. So without further ado, I bid you guys farewell, and I'll see you next time. Peace.